More and more we hear diagnoses of ADD, of children with autism, and more we hear about these students moving on, going to, and being successful in college. That's right, not just K through 12, but going on and getting a post-secondary degree. We have a national author with us today to help us understand all of that. From the flatlands of Indiana, we take you out to the beautiful mountainous Colorado, the city of Boulder, where we find Michael Sandler, who's the author of College Confidence with ADD. Michael is the founder of the Creative Learning Institute. And Michael, thanks so much for being with us on the Kids Count Radio Show.
Well, thank you, Bill, so much for having me on your show.
College Confidence with ADD, how is that possible?
Oh, actually, it's definitely possible. We tend to have very creative minds. We're huge out-of-the-box thinkers. It's just figuring out how to work with our minds. But once we do that, we can be tremendously successful in college.
Now, you talk we as in the first person.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not only somebody who studies this and writes about it and coaches about it, but I'm someone who's lived with it for my entire life.
Wow. Help us understand, just kind of from general terms, you know, we see more and more in the news about autism and dyslexia and ADD and these several learning disabilities. Do we have more children with learning disabilities, or do we have better scientific technology to diagnose disabilities that were always there and we just didn't know about?
I think we may have both of those situations going on, and we also have a third piece of the puzzle, which is the way society is going today and the way things are working is it's harder with those learning disabilities to fit into the puzzle. With a creative mind such as an ADD-type individual, we don't go from point A to point B to point C. So fitting us into a cookie-cutter educational system, for example, can be very challenging for us.
And how has that evolved? Because back in the day, a child could have just been termed, and unfortunately, you know, very pejorative, negative terms, dumb, stupid, can't learn, put them in a corner, give up on them, where today it seems there is more outreach, specifically designed programs to tap into the amazing intelligence and creativity that many of these kids have.
Well, I think maybe from those early descriptions, you spoke to some of my early teachers.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's how I started down this road myself.
Wow.
But fortunately now is that we can find that, okay, we may not learn from point A to point B to point C, but maybe we do a different way of note-taking. Maybe we use thought bubbles or mind maps or draw things out, or we're more kinesthetic learners. We do better with hands-on attention. And so we figure out what works for the individual student, and then they're able to shine.
And that is happening in the K through 12 years. And as that's happening, your book wants to encourage parents and their children who have learning disabilities, when the children have the learning disabilities, to be thinking very serious about college.
Oh, yes. I don't want them to steer away from college at all unless their heart wants them to go explore other avenues. I think that's what it all comes down to now is somebody with ADD doesn't have the ability to tune in and tune out all of the information that's going on around them. So what they need to do is find something they're very interested and excited about, and then they can latch onto it and can shine. So if you help the student figure out what they're passionate about, what they're excited about, and then match them up with the right institution or school that has those kind of programs, they can really take off. And given that opportunity, they're going to go on to do very well in college and beyond.
Now, choosing a college can be overwhelming for any student. What unique advice specifically do you have for families of a student who has a learning disability or has ADD?
You're going to need to find a school that has a great disability services program. And what I like to say is if a student needed some services in high school, they're going to need many services in college, or at least have them available. If they needed quite a bit of accommodations in high school, you're going to need a tremendous amount available in college. What typically happens is the student in high school says, well, I can make it on my own. In college, I'm not going to need any assistance. And they often go and cut the safety net right before they're going to need the services. Instead, look for a school that has the services available just so that they're there if you need them. Additionally, make sure the student looks for a school that's a match for them. That typically means a little bit smaller class size, so more one-on-one attention, and it means having the programs in place that they enjoyed in high school. I've seen too many students go on doing very well basketball, baseball, hockey, all these things in high school, and then they say, well, I'm going to get serious in college, and they choose a school that doesn't have any of those programs that they enjoyed in high school. And then without that fun thing that they're passionate about to keep them excited and going and everything, they flail.
How common is it for colleges and universities to have specific departments and programs for these students?
It goes both ways in that most schools have some sort of a program, but it may not be extensive enough. You need a school that has a program that's specifically experienced at working with ADD students. A great question to ask is, do you have an ADD specialist there, or how many ADD students do you work with? If you get somebody who's experienced in helping these kind of students, they can help the students to take off. If not, however, it tends to work in the opposite direction, and students get guilted and shamed as to, well, why can't you get the job done like anybody else? Then they run into some serious problems.
And again, just kind of coming into this as an outsider, it would seem that perhaps larger universities might have more of this specialty on campus, and yet you really counsel the importance of smaller class sizes. Is that an accurate overview?
Well, it goes both directions again, in that smaller class sizes in general tend to be more helpful. However, some of the best programs that I've seen across the country are in bigger schools where they have the number of ADD students there that they can put together a special programs or have a specialist or even additional services available to help get that student through. So it can go both ways. Small schools, small class size is great. A larger school, though, that has a program or something custom tailored to help that ADD student can get them through with the mass of other students and help keep them on track so that they can survive and thrive as well.
What about emotionally, Michael? I mean, all of us who went to college, were confronted with depression, anxiety, and fear. Just the words finals week could induce all of that. Is this a greater challenge for children and students with ADD? Is there anything different there that parents and school officials need to be aware of because of the learning disability?
Yes, and it may come from the history of what that student has been through. Students with ADD tend to have exceptionally inaccurate mirrors or self-perception. And so what may appear to be a small problem to the average student or a small problem to an outsider becomes a problem that the ADDer gets stuck on and dwells on, and it grows and spirals out of control. Maybe it's one quiz that went poorly, but they think about the one quiz, they can't get past the one quiz, then they bomb a test, then they're stuck working on a project, and then that class spills over into another class, until they've either flunked the semester or they're feeling really terrible about themselves because they don't have an accurate perception and can't judge, is this a small problem or is this a big problem?
We're speaking with Michael Sandler. He is the founder of the Creative Learning Institute, and his book is College Confidence with ADD. And, Michael, perhaps the best lesson any of us learn when we go to college has nothing to do with the specific academic content and has everything to do with time management, because now we're not in K through 12 school with the bell ringing, and for those who leave home and live on campus, boy, all the independence starts pouring in. What about in terms of time management skills, in terms of developing those for the student who has ADD, do folks need to know about as these kids hit the college campus?
Well, what I recommend is to start working on this even before they hit the college campus, preferably about a year or more in advance. And the best thing that we can do is get them a PDA or a PDA-type cell phone, something that has many alarms and functions as a calendar for them, so that they can start getting down assignments, giving themselves warning alarms that say you only have a week left to do this, you only have a day left to do this, you've got an exam coming up, helping them to figure out when they need to be where and to build that routine and put it into place so that when they're at school and they're being thrown all these different competing demands from a dozen different directions, they can sort it all out, get things put in place so that they can do one thing after the next, and so that it becomes a regular part of the routine so that they don't have to think about what's coming next.
And it's a challenge for all parents as their kids go on to college. How much do I stay involved? How much do I let go? We know the child's becoming independent. I don't want to hover, but good grief, I still want them to do well. So all parents wrestle with that. How involved should parents of students who are ADD be with their kids once they're in college?
Well, that's a very individualistic question, but I think the best way to look at it is try to put the services in place so that you've got a great disability services program there, that maybe you have a coach or a mentor or you know of a professor that can work hands-on with the student, and then keep the relationship between yourself and your student open so that if there's a big problem, you can be there if they need you, and so that you can keep the lines of communication open so that you can catch a red flag before the ship really goes down.
Well, Michael Sandler, you're a living example that ADD not be a barrier to success. The book is College Confidence with ADD, and Michael also is the founder of the Creative Learning Institute. Thanks so much for the great information here on the Kids Count Radio Show.